Welcome to The Way Left. I'm your podcast host, Brian Vitello, and today our topic is MAGA and McCarthyism. So what is McCarthyism? So Senator Joseph McCarthy in the 1940s and 90s, after post-World War II, of course, we're in the Cold War, was on a mission to persecute and repress thought. And it was left-wing thought in this case. It has happened from both sides, but in this case, it's very similar to what's going on now, especially since the Charlie Kirk assassination. So what did he do? What he did was he went after people that he thought were communists, were associated with communists, anything to do with the left ideology, left of center, and especially as it related to Stalin's Russia. And he did this not necessarily by rule of law, but by association, guilt by association, persecute, put them on a list for Hollywood, kick them off, they can't make movies, the type of things that are part of an illiberal society, not a liberal society, isn't part of liberalism, as I'll talk about in damn near every podcast. I want freedom of speech. I want freedom of thought. I want freedom of happiness. I don't want that to be restricted. So let's just take a quick look. For those on audio, I'm just showing a quick picture, which you're not missing much if you're on audio, because McCarthy's not much to look at. Here's Mr. McCarthy. They called it McCarthyism. It was also part of this Red Scare, and it was a political practice. Political repression and persecution of left-wing individuals in a campaign spreading fear of communist and Soviet influence on American institutions and of Soviet espionage in the United States. Espionage is rule of law. If you're sending secrets, then you're a traitor and you should be prosecuted. If you're a communist and you work at the store, you're allowed to be a communist. That's America. We need different thoughts and philosophies. If you're spreading hate and you're yelling fire in movie theaters, then we can go down this freedom of speech route. But that was not what Joseph McCarthy was doing. And that's why he kind of fell off his credibility. They found some false accusations and supposedly basically drank himself to death because he's out of the public eye and was no longer a senator. Now, that brings us to our current president, Donald Trump. So in this second campaign, he's really pushing hard, pushing on the left. And I'm talking actually, it's probably center right all the way to the left. Because MAGA is not right, or what I mean by that is right of center. MAGA is far right of center. It's not conservative, it's MAGA. There is a difference. We need all philosophies in society, but what we don't need is persecution based on philosophy. What Donald Trump said after the Charlie Kirk killing said that right-wing extremists are not the problem. They're not as bad. We're going to go after the left-wing extremist or anybody left-wing, and we're already investigating them. Who's he investigating? Is he doing McCarthy's thought process? Well, if you're a leftist, then you're automatically guilty by association. Don't we have to be careful about those words? Isn't it as for Americans, not just for conservatives or MAGA or liberals or Democrats? Very careful. And we're going down the road to McCarthyism. And we've been going down that road from inception of this presidency. And Trump is following that lead, and one of his leaders, this guy. So for those on audio, you're missing a really good picture of Stephen Miller. That's not the good picture. It's just that he's basically Gollum. He's like Gollum. He's just a monster. That's what he is. And he knows it, and he loves it. This man is far, far right. He makes MAGA look left. And one of the things that he has said is, as I'll quote down below, America is for Americans and Americans only. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, hopefully that means people from the left. But basically he's saying Americans is for Americans only. That's funny. Peter Thiel and Elon Musk weren't born in America. Are they Americans? Are you a citizen? Do you have to be born in America? There's a fine line there. But what he said more recently is even scarier. And it speaks of McCarthy like nobody's business. It is a vast domestic terror movement. He's talking about the left, said Miller, speaking of left-wing political organizations. Left-wing. Whatever that means. With God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people. So which American people again, right? He added, it will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name. So this guy is telling us clearly, I am Joseph McCarthy. I am going to take you down. I am going to come after you if you're left, if you don't agree with me, if you're not MAGA, if you don't have a red hat. That's not rule of law. That's illiberal. That's autocracy. That's authoritarianism. That's fascism. There's no other way to look at it. Now, if a leftist organization goes out and commits massive crimes, then you take down that organization. If a right-wing society, or organization takes down something, then you go after that organization. What you do not do is just pick people out by their ideology, because what that is the road to autocracy. And it's pretty clear, well, let's just admit it, that's the road they want. They want the Hungary, Viktor Orban's Hungary. They want the Vladimir Putin's Russia. They want Xi's China. They want North Korea's. They want Kim Jong-un's North Korea. In fact, those are all Donald Trump's friends. Isn't that funny? How he's so nice to Xi and Putin and North Korea, and he's not nice to the EU. He's not nice to Canada and Mexico. That's a different conversation, but think about it. Who are our friends? Do we have any friends anymore? Doesn't seem like we have any friends in America. Because if you're left or right, you hate each other. We sure in the hell don't have friends around the world now because we've put them under watch. The McCarthy watch. Guilt by association. Back to Stephen Miller's point. We only deal with Americans. It's the Americans he chooses. So let's see what some other fun folks said. Nancy Mace. She's a treat. She's a Republican from South Carolina, House of Representatives. And shortly after right-wing activist Charlie Kirk was fatally shot at a Utah event on Wednesday, she blamed the Democrats. That sounds fair. Doesn't know who the guy is. Doesn't know he grew up in a MAGA family. I mean, again, here we go. We're going to persecute. We're going to repress, and we're going to do it on false pretenses no matter what. And it's all the Democrats' fault, and it's all the left's fault. Sound familiar? Joseph McCarthy is jumping up and down in his grave. Democrats own this, Mace says, although the shooter was and continues to be at large, and the motive for the shooter is still very much unknown when she said this. A reporter pushed back, doing their job. By that logic, do Republicans own the shooting of the two Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota? Because those people were killed by a MAGA supporter. A right-wing guy gone nuts. This guy killed two people at their house, killed their dog, and then also injured another senator and his wife, not far away. Isn't this on both sides? The reporter asks Mace. Are you kidding me? Some raging leftist lunatic put a bullet through Kirk's neck and you want to talk about Republicans right now? No. Huh. So we're not allowed to talk about it before. We're not allowed to talk about it during or after. It's kind of, sounds just like Joseph McCarthyism. Joseph McCarthy and McCarthyism. See how we're going down here? Reporter, no, I'm asking you. You said the Democrats were going to. And she got interrupted by Mace because that's all she knows how to do. No, this is on the Democrats own this. And then, again, the reporter doing their job. But there's a problem with political violence across the country, across the spectrum. Mace says, we're talking about Charlie Kirk right now. That's the subject of this that we're talking about right now. Democrats own this 100%. 100%. It's the Democrats that a kid from Utah, a pretty red state, a very pro-gun, open carry state that grew up in a MAGA household, it's the Democrats that influenced them. Whether or not that's true, that's not the point, right? Are we persecuting and repressing everybody because of this event? We're not blaming guns. We're not blaming the NRA. We're not looking at gun laws. We're not going to do that, but we're going to go after the Democrats. Sounds like McCarthyism. So we got one more guy to talk about, and this guy's a treat. And the good thing is, not the good thing, ironic thing is this guy really makes it clear. This is the point that makes it all clear for all of us. The road to autocracy through McCarthyism, essentially what they're trying to do. Maybe they're not even trying. I'm not going to give them that much credit. Are they that smart? Some of them are. Probably don't see those people. Stephen Miller's pretty smart, and he's definitely wants autocracy. He definitely doesn't want transition of presidents. He supports the insurrection. There are some people behind the scenes. That'll be further podcasts. But let's just talk about Mike Lee. So Mike Lee, let's pull him up. He is a Utah senator. Mr. Lee's, I would say, he's interesting, to say the least. I don't agree with basically anything that comes out of his mouth. He's been around a long time. He's definitely in a state where he'll just keep getting elected. And he's gone further and further and further MAGA. Right. So Mike Lee, Utah senator. This is from Newsweek. So after the Minnesota killings, he blamed it on Marxists. And we'll get to that comment. Blamed it on Marxists before he even knew who the shooter was. He blamed it on the left. He blamed it on anybody left of center. Marxists, supposedly, and if you've ever read the Communist Manifesto, I would suggest reading it. It's got some interesting topics in it. Problem with Marxism or going into Leninism is it leads to authoritarianism. might be one good thing out of there, but let's not even go down that route. The point is, Marxism is equated with communism, and so therefore it's a leftist ideology. Fine, leftist ideology. So he called the shooter in Minnesota a leftist and killed Democratic lawmakers and state lawmakers. So a left-wing guy shot left-wing people in Minnesota, according to Mr. Lee. Quality guy, before he knew anything about him. However, in the hours after the killing of Kirk, who happens to be was right-wing ideology, a turning point in USA, as some call it TPUSA, went from conservative to pretty far right. That's not the point. Again, we don't accept assassinations. We don't accept gun violence. But here's Mr. Lee in an impassioned tribute, calling the incident a cowardly act of violence. Agree. And hailing Kirk as an American patriot. Could argue that, but fine, he was an American, who inspired countless young people. Sure, I don't agree with his ideology, but I agree with that. The terrorists will not win. The terrorists surely will. Of course, they're going to do the praying thing, and that's going to save a bunch of people. I mean, all these prayers, and they still have gun violence. I just don't get it. May justice be swift, is what Mr. Lee says. Justice is going to be swift. The terrorists will not win. However, less than 3 months earlier, Lee's response to the double assassination of Democratic lawmaker Hortman and her husband was widely criticized. Instead of mourning the victims, Lee initially mocked the event on social media, struck a far less gracious tone in June, including a post on X that said, "Nightmare on Walt Street." So Tim Walz was the candidate for vice president, along with Kamala Harris. He is the governor of Minnesota, and yes, he is one of those leftists, so he's a Democrat. Another post falsely stated, "This is what happens when Marxists don't get their way," while including an image of Bolter, who friends and public reps described as politically right-leaning, having once registered as a Republican in Oklahoma. So the right-wing guy kills the left-wing guy. He's a Marxist. We don't even know who, at the time that Mike Lee said this, he doesn't even know who it is, but they're terrorists, and of course turns into left-wing terrorists. What is my point? Why are we talking about this? Well, I don't care who does it. If the left or the right push a agenda similar to Joseph McCarthy, it's wrong. But I can tell you right now, it's coming pretty heavy from the right. Social media, Elon Musk calling left is the party of murder, associating with people like Fuentes, who's a far-right neo-Nazi, Laura Loomer. The point here is MAGA and the people in the MAGA sphere and in power are pushing McCarthyism on us all, but especially those on the left. Fear inspires hate. Hate inspires violence from both sides, left or right. And Trump is doing a damn good job of making sure that if there's any additional violence, it's going to come from the right on the left, even through our government, through a man like Stephen Miller. That's not the rule of law. That's not democracy. And that's not liberalism. So I thank you. This is a quick podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I think you should look up at Joseph McCarthy. You can look up a lot of these other quotes. I'm not pulling this shit out of thin air. I obviously have my opinion. Read. And I like to leave with a couple questions. The first question is, what do we do about gun violence? What do we do? And we should talk about it. And what do we do about McCarthyism, whether it's from the left or from the right? How do we avoid that? Picking people out of society for their thoughts. If they commit mass murder, they go to jail. I don't care what they were thinking. And we can go back and find out why they might have done that. But believe me, ideologies push people, guns kill people. And I know people will spin that. And a little famous quote from a man you might know is Robert Zimmerman, whose stage name was Bob Dylan. You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. And I thank you for watching The Way Left.